Welcome back to Divine Insights TV, where we bring the captivating stories of the Bible to life. Today's story is one of the most well-known and powerful in the entire Bible, the story of Noah and the Ark. It's a tale of obedience, faith, divine judgment, and mercy. But beyond the animals and the flood, this story carries deep meaning that still speaks to us today. Let's journey back to the days of Noah. This is the story of a man named Noah. A man who stood tall in faith when the world around him had fallen. It all began in the early chapters of the book of Genesis, which says, "And God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually." Genesis 6 verse 5. At that time, the world was not as God had intended. Violence filled the land. People had become corrupt, every desire of their heart strayed far from the goodness of their Creator. They no longer sought righteousness. They no longer honored the one who had breathed life into their dust. The Bible says, "And it repented the Lord that he had made men on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart." Genesis 6 verse 6. The heart of God was broken. The world he so lovingly created had turned against him. And so, he made a decision that changed the world forever. He said, "I will destroy from the face of the earth both man and beast, for the earth is filled with violence through them." Genesis 6 verse 13. But in the midst of this darkness, there was light. Noah, a man unlike any other in his generation, found grace in the eyes of the Lord. Genesis 6 verse 8. Noah was a just man and perfect in his generations, and Noah walked with God. Genesis 6 verse 9. While others mocked God, cheated, and shed blood, Noah worshipped. He didn't follow the crowd. He listened for the voice of God. And one day, that voice came, clear, solemn, and powerful. God said to Noah, "Make thee an ark of gopher wood." Genesis 6 verse 14. An ark. A giant vessel unlike anything the world had ever seen. 450 feet long, 75 feet wide, and 45 feet high, a floating fortress, designed not by human imagination, but by divine instruction. With each plank of wood, Noah was building not just a boat. He was building salvation. For 120 years, Noah labored. He and his sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, cut trees, crafted beams, and constructed decks. 3 levels. 1 door. A window above. And space enough for the creatures of the earth. Noah's neighbors passing by asked him the reason he was building such an immense structure. Noah revealed that God will soon destroy the whole world with rain and a great flood. But they laughed and ridiculed him, saying, "Rain? What is rain? You say the sky will flood. You're mad, old man." But Noah did not flinch. He kept building. Why? Because he believed God. And belief, even in the face of ridicule, is the beginning of faith. By faith Noah, being warned of God of things not seen as yet, moved with fear, prepared an ark. Hebrews 11 verse 7. Then, at last, the time came. God said to Noah, "Come thou and all thy house into the ark, for thee have I seen righteous before me in this generation." Genesis 7 verse 1. 2 by 2, the animals came. Lions and lambs. Doves and dragons of the deep. Clean animals, unclean, birds of the sky and creeping things of the earth, all under divine direction. And then, the door was shut. Not by Noah, but by God himself. Genesis 7 verse 16. The skies darkened. The earth groaned. Then, on the 17th day of the 2nd month, it began. All the fountains of the great deep were broken up, and the windows of heaven were opened. Genesis 7 verse 11. Rain, relentless, roaring, poured for 40 days and 40 nights. Mountains vanished beneath the waters. Cities were swept away. All flesh that moved upon the earth perished, except those inside the ark. For 150 days, the waters ruled. The ark floated, steady, silent, a beacon of God's mercy in the midst of judgment. But God had not forgotten Noah. Genesis 8 verse 1. A wind passed over the earth. The waters began to go down. On the 17th day of the 7th month, the ark came to rest upon the mountains of Ararat. Still, Noah waited. He sent out a raven, then a dove. The dove returned with an olive leaf, a sign that dry land had returned. And after more waiting, over a year after the flood began, God said, "Go forth of the ark," Genesis 8 verse 16. And so Noah, his family, and all the animals stepped out onto a new earth, cleansed, renewed. Noah's first act was not to build a house or claim land, but to build an altar, Genesis 8 verse 20. He offered burnt offerings in thanksgiving. And God was pleased. Then, God made a promise, a covenant. "Never again will I curse the ground because of humans. Never again will I destroy all living creatures." Genesis 8 verse 21. To seal this promise, God gave a sign, a rainbow. "I have set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be for a token of a covenant between me and the earth." Genesis 9 verse 13. The rainbow is a symbol of peace, of promise, of mercy after judgment. The story of Noah and the ark is not just ancient history. It's a mirror, a message, and a reminder. It tells us that God sees all things, that sin has consequences. But it also tells us that God is full of grace for those who walk with Him. Noah stood alone in righteousness, and God used him to preserve the future. Today, we too are called to walk in obedience, even when the world walks away. So the next time you see a rainbow, remember Noah. Remember the flood. But most of all, remember the God who keeps His promises. If you were inspired by this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more Bible stories brought to life. And share this with someone who needs to be reminded that even in judgment, God makes a way for salvation. Until next time, walk in faith, and stay blessed.